Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Namane. Offer my respectful obeisances unto His Divine Grace, Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur Prabhupada, who is very dear to Lord Krishna on this earth, having taken shelter at His lotus feet. Shivarsha Vanavi Devi Daya Daya Karmabdaya Krishna Sambandha Vigyana Nayane Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances to Shivarsha Vanavi Devi Dāsa, who is favored by Srimati Radharani and who is the ocean of transcendental mercy and the deliverer of the science of Krishna. Madhuri Ujvala Premadya, Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida, Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostate. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, the personified energy of Shri Chaitanya's mercy, who delivered devotional service enriched with conjugal love of Radha and Krishna, coming exactly in the line of the revelation of Śrīla Goswami. Namaste Gauravani Shimurtaye Dinatarane Rupanuga Virudapa Siddhanta Danta Dvanta Marine. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who are the personified teachings of Lord Chaitanya. You are the deliverer of the fallen souls. You do not tolerate any statement against the teachings of devotional service enunciated by Śrīla Goswami. Please take this. Concluding words to the Śrī Chaitanya Charitamrita. We have now finished the English translation of Krishna Dāsa Kaviraj Goswami's Śrī Chaitanya Charitamrita in accordance with the authorized order of His Divine Grace, Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur Goswami Maharaj. My beloved, eternal, spiritual master, guide, and friend. Though according to material vision, His Divine Grace, Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur passed away from this material world on the last day of December 1936. It was actually at 5:30 in the morning on the 1st of January 1937. I still consider His Divine Grace to be always present with me by His body, His words. In this connection, we may call to memory the time when I was fortunate enough to meet His Divine Grace, Śrīla Prabhupada, sometime in the year 1922. Śrīla Prabhupada had come to Calcutta from Sri Mayapur to start the missionary activities of the Gaudiya Math. He was sitting in a house at Uttadanga when, through the inducement of an intimate friend, the late Sriman Narendranath Malik, I had the opportunity to meet His Divine Grace for the first time. I do not remember the actual date of the meeting, but at that time I was one of the managers of Dr. Bose's laboratory in Calcutta. I was a newly married young man, addicted to Gandhi's movement and dressed in khadi. Fortunately, even at our first meeting, His Divine Grace advised me to preach the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in English in the Western countries. Because at that time I was a complete nationalist, a follower of Mahatma Gandhi's, I submitted to His Divine Grace that unless our country were freed from foreign subjugation, no one would hear our message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu seriously. Of course, we had some argument in this regard, but at last I was defeated and convinced that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message is the only panacea for suffering humanity. I was also convinced that the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was then in the hands of a very expert devotee, and surely the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would spread all over the world. I could not, however, immediately take up his instructions to preach, but I took his words very seriously, and I was always thinking of how to execute his order, although I was quite unfit to do so. In 1936, just before His Divine Grace passed away at Jagannath Puri, I wrote him a letter asking what I could do to serve him. In reply, he wrote me a letter dated 13th December 1936, ordering me in the same way to preach the English cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as I heard it from him. This will do good for you and for those who will help you. In any case, when I had published Srimad Bhagavatam First Canto in 3 volumes in India, I thought of going to the USA. Actually, Prabhupada reveals in one place that after completing the 3rd volume of the first canto, Guru Maharaj gave indication, now it is time for you to go to the USA. I was able to come to New York on the 17th of September 1965. Since then, I have translated many books, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and many others. I think that His Divine Grace, Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī, always seeing my activities, guiding me within words. As it is said in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Tene Brahma Hirdaya Ya Adi Kavaye. Spiritual inspiration comes from within the heart, where the Supreme Personality of Godhead in His Paramatma feature is always sitting with all His devotees and associates. It is to be admitted that whatever translation work I have done is through the inspiration of my spiritual master, because personally I'm most insignificant and incompetent to do this materially impossible work. I do not think myself a very learned scholar, but I have full faith in the service of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur. If there is any credit to my activities of translating, it is all due to His Divine Grace. Certainly, if His Divine Grace were physically present at this time, it would have been a great occasion for jubilation. But even though He is not physically present, I am confident that He is very pleased by this work of translation. He was very fond of seeing many books published to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. Therefore, our society, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, has formed to execute the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur. What is the title of the 13th chapter of the first canto? This is an excerpt. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the great preacher of the principles of... Right. Srimad Bhagavatam has stressed the importance of association with sadhus, pure devotees of the Lord. He said that even by a moment's association with a pure devotee, one can achieve all perfection. We are not ashamed to admit that this fact was experienced in our practical life. Prabhupada was the undisputed group leader, and his friend Narendranath Malik wanted to bring Srila Prabhupada to meet him to get his opinion, because if Abhay Charan thought that he was a good sadhu, that would be the complete authorization for everyone. While the two young men were still rising and preparing to sit before any preliminary formalities or conversation had even begun, Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta immediately said to them, "You are educated young men. Why don't you preach Lord Chaitanya's Mahaprabhu's message throughout the whole world?" Abai could hardly believe what he had just heard. They had not even exchanged views, yet this sadhu was telling them what they should do. Sitting face to face with Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī, Abai was gathering his wits and trying to gain a comprehensible impression, but this person had already told them to become preachers and go all over the world. Abai was immediately impressed, but he wasn't going to drop his intelligent skepticism. After all, there were assumptions in what this sadhu had said. Abai had already announced himself by his dress to be a follower of Gandhi, and he felt the impulse to raise an argument. Yet as he continued to listen to Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta speak, he also began to feel won over by this sadhu's strength of conviction. He could sense that Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta didn't care for anything but Lord Chaitanya, and that was what made him great. This was why followers had gathered around him, and why Abai himself felt drawn, inspired, and humble, and wanted to hear more. But he felt obliged to make an argument, to test the truth. Drawn irresistibly into discussion, Abai spoke up in answer to the words of Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta, who had so tersely spoken in the first seconds of their meeting. "Who will hear your Chaitanya's message?" Abai queried. "We are a dependent country. First, India must become independent. How can we spread Indian culture if we are under British rule?" Abai had not asked haughtily, just to be provocative, yet his question was clearly a challenge. If he were to take this sadhu's remark to them as a serious one, then there was nothing in Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta's demeanor to indicate that he had not been anything but serious. Abai felt compelled to question how he could propose such a thing while India was still dependent. Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta replied in a quiet, deep voice that Krishna consciousness didn't have to wait for a change in Indian politics, nor was it dependent on who ruled. Krishna consciousness was so important, so exclusively important, that it could not wait. Abai was struck by his boldness. How could he say such a thing? The whole world of India, beyond this little Ulta Dunga rooftop, was in turmoil and seemed to support what Abai had said. Many famous leaders of Bengal, many saints, even Gandhi himself, men who were educated and spiritually minded, all might have very well asked this same question, challenging this sadhu's relevancy. And yet he was dismissing everything and everyone as if they were of no consequence. He continued, whether one power or another ruled was a temporary situation, but the eternal reality is Krishna consciousness, and the real self is the spirit soul. No man-made political system, therefore, could actually help humanity. This was the verdict of the Vedic scriptures and the line of spiritual masters. Although everyone is an eternal servant of God, when one takes himself to be the temporary body and regards the nation of his birth as worshipful, he comes under illusion. The leaders and followers of the world's political movements, including the movement for Swaraj, were simply cultivating this illusion. Real welfare work, whatever individual, whether social or political, should help prepare a person for his next life and help him reestablish his eternal relationship with the Supreme. Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta had articulated these ideas many times before in his writing. Excerpt, quote, "There has not been, nor will there be, such benefactors of the highest merit as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees have been. The offer of other benefits is only a deception. It is rather a great harm, whereas the benefit done by him and his followers is the truest and greatest eternal benefit. This benefit is not for one particular country causing mischief to another, but it benefits the whole universe. The kindness that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has shown to jivas absolved them eternally from all wants, from all inconveniences, and from all the distresses. Their kindness does not produce any evil, and the jivas who have it will not be the victims of the evils of the world." Abhay had concluded that this was certainly not just another questionable sadhu, and he perceived the truth in what Srila Bhaktisiddhānta said. This sadhu wasn't concocting his own philosophy, and he wasn't simply proud or belligerent. Even though he spoke in a way that kicked out practically every other philosophy, he was speaking the eternal teachings of the Vedic literature and the sages, and Abhay loved to hear it. His presentation was so cogent that anyone who accepted the Shastras would have to accept his conclusion. Abhay had never forgotten the worship of Lord Krishna or his teachings in Bhagavad Gita, and his family had always worshipped Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whose mission Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī was espousing. As these Gaudiya Math people worshipped Krishna, he had also worshipped Krishna throughout his life and had never forgotten Krishna. But now he was astonished to hear the Vaishnava philosophy presented so masterfully. Despite his involvement in college, marriage, the national movement, and other affairs, he had never forgotten Krishna. But Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī was now stirring up within him his original Krishna consciousness, and by the words of this spiritual master, not only was he remembering Krishna, but he felt his Krishna consciousness being enhanced 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times. What had been unspoken in Abhay's boyhood, what had been vague in Jagannath Puri, what he had been distracted from at college, what he had been protected in by his father, now surged forth within Abhay in responsive feelings, and he wanted to keep it. He felt himself defeated, but he liked it. He suddenly realized that he had never before been defeated, but this defeat was not a loss. It was an immense gain. And now Prabhupada saying, I was from a Vaishnava family, so I could appreciate what he was preaching. Of course, he was speaking to everyone, but he found something in me. And I was convinced about his argument and mode of presentation. I was so much struck with wonder. I could understand. Here is the proper person who can give a real religious idea. Were we not favored by his divine grace, by our first meeting for a few minutes only, it would have been impossible for us to accept this mighty task of describing Srimad Bhagavatam in English. Without seeing him at that opportune moment, we could have become a very great business magnate, but never would we have been able to walk the path of liberation and be engaged in the factual service of the Lord under the instructions of his divine grace. We had the opportunity to meet an avowed brahmachari in the personality of our spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Goswami Maharaj. Such a great soul is called Naishtik Brahmachari. So in December 1968, on this same Tirubhav Mahotsav in Los Angeles, Srila Prabhupada gave two examples to illustrate the greatness of Srila Bhaktisiddhānta. One was when he was only 4 years old, taking a mango that had not been offered to the deity and being mildly corrected by his great father, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. All this is for the deity. You should not have done it. The child took it so seriously that never again in his life would he take mango. And also, Srila Prabhupada was present when his godbrother friend O.B.L. Kapoor and his wife, they were all very young at the time, the lady asked Srila Bhaktisiddhānta if she could speak with him in a secluded place. And Srila Bhaktisiddhānta said, no, I cannot do that. Whatever you want to say, you can say it here in front of everyone. He refused to meet the woman in a secret place. Srila Bhaktisiddhānta used to say, if I could perfectly deliver even one soul back home, back to Godhead, I would think my mission of propagating Krishna consciousness to be successful. Here's an excerpt from Srila Bhaktisiddhānta's writing. This is called From Search for the Truth, the Sadhu. It is for this reason that the Bhagavad instructs us to turn over a new leaf. Persons of good sense must entirely give up all association with bad company and cultivate close association with the sadhus. There is no doubt that the words of the sadhu possess the power of destroying the evil propensity of one's mind. The sadhus in this way benefit everyone who associates with them. The real sadhu makes us speak out what we keep concealed in our hearts. He then applies the knife. The very word sadhu has no other meaning than this. He stands in front of the block with the uplifted sacrificial knife in his hand. The sensuous desires of men are like the goats. The sadhu stands there to kill those desires by the merciful stroke of the keen edge of the sacrificial knife in the form of unpleasant language. If the sadhu turns into my flatterer, then he does me harm. He becomes my enemy. If he gives us flattery, then we are led to the road that brings enjoyment, but no real well-being. In July 1935, Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī came to install the deity of Lord Krishna and to institute deity worship at the Bombay Center. He was pleased with what his disciples had done so far, and Bhakti Saranga Maharaj admitted that much of the work was done to Abai Babu, who had collected funds and established a new center. Why is Abai living separately? Bhakti Saranga asked. He should be president of this Bombay Center. Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī replied, it is better that he is living outside your company. He will do. When the time comes, he will do everything himself. You don't have to recommend them. Abai had not been present when this was spoken, but his godbrothers told him what Srila Bhaktisiddhānta had said. These words of his spiritual master, with their mysteriously prophetic air, were important to Abai. He treasured the words within himself and meditated upon their meeting. Bhakti Saranga Goswami was sent in 1936 to try to make some progress in the London preaching after the previous senior devotees were called back, not having much success. And there was some contemplation of sending one of the more qualified scholarly brahmacharis, I forget his name, and he implored and pleaded to Srila Bhaktisiddhānta, please do not send me so far away to the land of the Mlechas, away from your lotus feet. And Srila Bhaktisiddhānta said, that is all right. Abhay Charan Aravinda, he can go. He is competent. He can do everything. Srila Prabhupada was not there for hearing that also. And then, of course, there's the amazing words spoken by Srila Bhaktisiddhānta at the final Gaur-Purnim festival of the Gaudiya Math on the occasion of the Navadvip Mandal Prikram. He's addressing in the festival Pandal tent a wide range of personalities, all the leaders and senior disciples and devotees of Gaudiya Math, congregational members, pilgrims, and Srila Bhaktisiddhānta stops, looks at our Srila Prabhupada, who is not in the front with the sannyasis and leading men, but off to the side, and makes eye contact with them, looking at him, and then turns to address the crowd. I have a prediction. No matter how far in the future it may be, one of my disciples will cross the ocean and bring back the entire world. I think we remarked in one of the recent classes that Srila Prabhupada, in going to London, one challenging and disrespectful reporter said, Swami, why have you come to this great country, Great Britain, United Kingdom? We have our own God. We have our own religion. What do we need what you are, why have you come here? And Srila Prabhupada said, for over 200 years, your country stole whatever they could find of value from our country. But I have come to give you the greatest treasure which you have forgotten freely without charging any money. So on Prabhupada's meeting, Srila Bhaktisiddhānta in Radhakund on Braj Mandal Prikram, in 1935, and Srila Bhaktisiddhānta spoke confidentially to Abhay. There had been some quarreling amongst his leading disciples in Calcutta, he said, and this distressed him very much. Even now in Vrindavan, it weighed heavily on his mind. Some of his disciples had been fighting over who would use various rooms and facilities at the Gaudiya Math headquarters in Calcutta. These devotees were all members of the same Math, and the building was for propagating Krishna consciousness under his leadership. Yet even in his presence, they were quarreling. If they were to fight now, what would they do after their spiritual master passed away? Abhay had no part in these matters, and he did not even know the details or who was involved. But as he listened to his spiritual master, he also became distressed. There will be fire. One day there would be fire in the Calcutta Gaudiya Math, and that fire of party interests would spread and destroy. Abhay heard, but did not know what to make of it. Srila Bhaktisiddhānta had fought so long and boldly to establish that anyone of any birth could be elevated to become a Brahmin, a sannyasi, or a Vaishnava. But if his followers became contaminated by little wealth and the desire for prestige, thereby showing themselves to still be low-class men despite their training and purification, then his mission would be disrupted. If in the name of religion they'd become attached to ease, position, and prestige, it could only mean that they had failed to grasp the teachings of their spiritual master. Our Srila Prabhupada reveals he was lamenting that these men were simply after the stones and bricks of the building. He condemned. He was very, very sorry. When we were living in a rented house, if we could collect 200 or 300 rupees per month, we were living very nicely at Ulta Dunga. We were happier then. But since we have been given this marble palace in Bagh Bazaar, there is friction.
Who will occupy this room? Who will occupy that room? Who will be the proprietor of this room? Everyone is planning in different ways. It would be better to take the marble from the walls and secure money. If I could do this and print books, that would be better. Abai felt his spiritual master speaking to him in urgency, as if asking him for help or warning him to avert a disaster. But what could he do? Then Srila Bhaktisiddhānta said directly to Abai, I had a desire to print some books. If you ever get money, print books. Abai felt these words deeply enter his own life. If you ever get money, print books. December 1936. Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī was in poor health at Jagannath Puri. Abai was in Bombay and he wanted to write his Guru Maharaj a letter. He is a little kind upon me, Abai thought. He will understand my request. And he began to write. Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances at your lotus feet. You have got many disciples, and I am one of them, but they are doing direct service to you. Some of them are brahmacharis, some of them are sannyasis, but I am only a householder. I cannot. Sometimes I give monetary help, while I cannot give you direct service. Is there any particular service I can do? 2 weeks later, Abai received a reply. I am fully confident that you can explain in English our thoughts and arguments to the people who are not conversant with the languages of the other members. This will do much good to yourself as well as your audience. I have every hope that you can turn yourself into a very good English preacher if you serve the mission to inculcate the novel impression of Lord Chaitanya's teachings in the people in general as well as philosophers and religionists. Abai had at once recognized this to be the same instruction he had received at their first meeting in 1922. He took it as a confirmation. There was now no doubt as to the purpose of his life. What his spiritual master had said in Calcutta in 1922 had not been a chance remark, nor had it been a chance meeting. The instruction was the same. Turn yourself into a very good English preacher. This will do much good to yourself as well as your audience. Srila Bhaktisiddhānta passed away from this mortal world on the 1st of January, 1937. He had spending his last days reading Chaitanya Charitamrita and chanting japa. When a doctor had visited him wanting to give him an injection, Srila Bhaktisiddhānta had protested. Why are you disturbing me in this way? Simply chant Hare Krishna, that's all. Amongst his last words to his disciples, quote, I advise you all to preach the teachings of Rupa Raghunath with all energy and resources. Our ultimate goal shall be to become the dust of the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Raghunath Goswamis. You should all work conjointly under the guidance of your spiritual master with a view to serve the absolute knowledge, the personality of Godhead. You should live somehow or other without any quarrel in this mortal world, only for the service of Godhead. Do not, please, give up the service of Godhead in spite of all dangers, all criticisms, and all discomforts. Do not be disappointed, for most people in the world do not serve the personality of Godhead. Do not give up your own service, which is your everything and all. Neither reject the process of chanting and hearing of the transcendental holy name of Godhead. You should always chant the transcendental name of Godhead with patience and forbearance like a tree and humbleness like a straw. There are many amongst you who are well qualified and able workers. We have no other desire whatsoever. In his last days, he had remained fully conscious and had given instructions until the end. He had specifically and openly ordered that the affairs of his Gaudiya Math be maintained by a 12-man governing body, which the devotees should select amongst themselves. Finally, he had said, please accept my blessings to you, present and absent. Please bear in mind that our sole duty and religion is to spread and propagate service to the Lord and of his devotees. At 5:30 a.m. on January 1st, he passed away. Word very soon reached the Bai in Bombay. His immediate response was to cry with grief. No more the joy of an anticipated meeting, no more trips to Calcutta or Vrindavan on the plea of business just to see the tall, commanding form of Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta, the evangelic angel. This sense of never meeting again was difficult to bear. Philosophically, however, Abai knew that there was no reason to lament. Even armed with the philosophy of service and separation, Abai felt all alone. His two great well-wishers were gone, his father and now his spiritual master. But he had felt grateful that he had received a special mercy, a final instruction, just 2 weeks before his spiritual master's departure. Abai read his letter again and again. There would not be another. The intimate talks and meetings were now gone, but by this letter especially, Abai would live in the instruction of Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī. The letter had come just in time. Now he knew for certain, no matter what anyone else said, how to please his spiritual master and stay linked with Krishna. Following his order, he would conquer the feeling of loss at the disappearance of his most affectionate well-wisher. So from that 1968 Disappearance Day anniversary in Los Angeles, I took that order of my spiritual master very seriously. But I did not think that I'll have to do such and such a thing. I was at that time a householder. This is the arrangement of Krishna. If we strictly tried to serve the spiritual master, his order, then Krishna will give us all facilities. That is the secret. Although there was no possibility, I never thought, but I took it a little seriously by studying a commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavad Gita connection with 241 verse, Vyavasyatmika Buddhir Ekeha Kurunandana. Gives his commentary as you would take up the words from the spiritual master as our life and soul. We should try to carry out the instruction, the specific instruction of the spiritual master, very rigidly without caring for our personal benefit or loss. So I tried a little bit in that spirit. He has given me all facilities to serve him. Things have come to the stage that in this old age I have come to your country, and you are also taking this movement seriously, trying to understand it. We have got some books now, so there is a little foothold of this movement. Now on this occasion of my spiritual master's departure, as I am trying to execute his will, similarly I shall also request you to execute this same order through my will. I am an old man. I can pass away at any moment. That is nature's law. Nobody can check it, so that is not very astonishing. But my appeal to you on this auspicious day, the departure of my Guru Maharaj, that at least to some extent you have understood the essence of the Krishna consciousness movement. You should try to push it on. People are suffering from want of this consciousness. This Krishna consciousness movement is authorized, very important. Now you American boys and girls who have taken this movement, please take it more seriously, and that is the mission of Lord Chaitanya and my Guru Maharaj. and we are also trying to execute the will of the disciplic succession. You have come forward to help me. I shall request you all that I shall go away, but you shall live. Don't give up pushing on this movement, and you will be blessed by Lord Chaitanya and His divine grace, Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Goswami Prabhupada. Thank you very much. So once again, the exemplary discipleship of our is Srila Prabhupada with his Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur, as Prabhupada is described in his concluding words to the Chaitanya Charitamrita, is the reason why this ISKCON movement is formed, why it is maintained, and how it is progressing. If we accept the order of the spiritual master as our life and soul, Krishna will give us all facilities. So Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON has become a very great, gigantic movement all over the world. What is the current count? How many temples, farms, and various projects all over the world? Like something 600 or something? So many initiated disciples and so many wonderful things going on all over the world. Prabhupada writes in the Adi Lila chapter 7, where Lord Chaitanya is telling Prakashananda Saraswati and his Mayavad followers that my spiritual master considered me a fool and I'm not fit to study Vedanta, but he instructed me always to chant the holy name. So Prabhupada writes in that section, one should never consider oneself to be a great devotee or preacher, but we should simply try to be instrumental for the predecessor acharyas, and in that way we can actually do something for suffering humanity. You got the number? More than 600. Jai. So, this is the most beautiful thing in the world, is the connection, the discipleship, the disciplic succession, spiritual master to disciple, and such an extraordinary spiritual master and disciple in Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur and His divine grace, Abhay Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. So let us rededicate our life and soul to serving their mission, serving their lotus feet, and our life will be a complete success, be reestablished in our eternal loving relationship with Krishna on the platform of Sat, Chit, and Ananda, completely forever free from the modes of material nature and birth, death, disease, and old age of this material world. Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur Prabhupada ki, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki, Shri Shri Radha Govinda ki, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Haribol, Hare Krishna.